Hey guys, what's up? Hope you're doing well, having a good day. Making sure you take care of everything you take care of. Don't do what I would do. It's your boy Gardog, back at it again. It's actually my first inaugural video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share if you enjoy the video. And today we're going to be covering Pittsburgh's forgotten basketball history. And also the first overall pick you've probably never heard of. So, Pittsburgh is a fairly rich sports culture city. They have 5 Stanley Cups to their name with the Penguins, 6, NFL championships, Super Bowls, depending on the era, with the Steelers, of course, one of the most storied franchises in all of football, and 5 World Series amongst the Pirates. Pirates fans are struggling right now, but I think the team's on the up and up with guys like LeBron Hayes. So let's get into the basketball side of things. Now let's set the scene. The year is 1946. The world is 1 year removed from World War II's end. And the Pittsburgh Ironmen, back in America, have just gone 15-45 overall. Now, that might sound kind of strange. The seasons were shorter back then, and the Basketball Association of America was still in play at this point. So that's why the seasons are a little shorter than we normally hear as the 82 we know now. This team had 62.2 points per game as their average. Now again, pace and rate all contributing to that factor, but this team was abysmal at the time at scoring. So like many tanking teams, they were able to get the first overall pick in the first ever Basketball Association Draft of America. And what did they do with this pick? They selected Clifton McNeely out of Wesleyan College, an All-American, a scoring savant at the time. But to put into perspective, a 5'10 guard/forward. Now this just goes to show how much the game has evolved, how big nutrition is in the game now, and how big a factor height and wingspan both play in the game. But enough about the modern game. Let's see what got Clifton McNeely to this point to be the first overall draft pick in ABA/NBA history. Clifton McNeely started his collegiate career at DeCarter Baptist Junior College. This is where he set high-scoring records on the school's basketball team. After this in 1940, he transferred to Texas Wesleyan University, where he really started to gain fame, basically for his shot-crazy style that at first was heavily doubted just because, remember, back at the time, we're in the 1940s, centers are really the primary players that you want to have. You want to have a great center, and that's the key to having a great team at the time. Anyway, during his first season at Texas Wesleyan in 1940-41, McNeely actually established himself as one of the most talented players on the team and was named team captain for the 1941-42 season. He helped guide Texas Wesleyan to an undefeated record during the 1941-42 regular season, with the team's only 2 defeats coming in the postseason against Sam Houston State in the Southwestern AAU tournament and San Diego in the Kansas City National Intercollegiate Basketball Tournament. So the Ironmen used the league's first ever pick again to select Clifton McNeely. At this point, he was 28 years old. And we got to go back a little bit to figure out why he was so much older than normal draft picks at the time, are coming in at 19 to 22, really at the oldest. Well, this was because in December 1942, McNeely left the team after volunteering to serve with the United States Army Air Corps in World War II. Again, 1946 was the year he was drafted. So at that point, World War II had just ended, but he decided to go serve his country honorably, as most men at the time did. And during his service in the military, he played basketball with the Fort Worth Army Airfield team from 1943 to 1944, and then with the Randolph Field team in 1945. He was discharged on December 31st, 1945. This is a few months after World War II had just ended. And during 1946, McNeely played with the Global Aircraft team. McNeely received professional basketball contract offers following his discharge, including $2.80 a game, which at the time sounded like a lot. I know today that's probably what you get on the McDonald's, dollar menu, but at the time it was a decent amount of money. Deal with the Leonard B team, but elected to return to Texas Wesleyan for the 1946-47 season. He was named team co-captain alongside Hardy Fortenberry. Before the first season start, Texas Wesleyan coach Johnny Edwards stated that McNeely had a good future in professional basketball and could play professionally after he graduated. By the start of the 1947 season, McNeely was nicknamed the man of a million shots and was also quoted as being a lethal free throw shooter. In the NAIA, he had 725 points, scoring All-American honors. So this guy was really, the top of his class at the time, obviously. But here's the real kicker. Once the Ironmen finally selected him, he decided to go back and teach at a local high school in Texas. He didn't want to do this. He didn't really want to play basketball professionally anymore at this point. I know this should have came up in the draft process, but obviously he didn't. And this team actually got compounded. The team was no longer a team after the season. So what happened to Pittsburgh basketball after this? Now, the basketball scene in Pittsburgh had gone relatively dry for a little over a decade, but in 1961 a new team was formed, and this team was called the Pittsburgh Wrens, short for Renaissance. This team only lasted until 1963, but they did have decent seasons the time they played in the ABA. However, in 1967, the Pittsburgh Pipers were created, and they were actually the first ABA champions to ever exist. And this was led by no other than Connie Hawkins, one of the greatest ABA players of all time, and possibly one of the greatest players to only play a short stint in the NBA, because this man was a legend. Not only was he a Harlem Globetrotter, he was also on the Wrens for a little bit of time, and obviously he helped Pittsburgh get a championship once they became the Pipers. But shortly after this, he went to the Phoenix Suns, unfortunately. In his 1 year, 1968, he won the championship, Finals MVP, and regular season MVP. After this, he was an NBA All-Star 4 times from 1970 to 1973, and he was first team in 1970. His number 42 is actually now retired by the Phoenix Suns. So this guy, obviously goated, especially if you're a Pittsburgh basketball fan. After having the best season in ABA history to that point, as the reigning champions, how was this team rewarded? Not only did they lose Connie Hawkins, their best player, the MVP, the man who averaged 26.8 points per game, leading the ABA by far, but they also lost their team. The team then moved out of state, and they moved to Minnesota. Minnesota of all places. Yes, I know, Minnesota basketball. You guys are having a hard time right now. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for your fans. I hope Cat gets put in a better place or a better position to win soon. Hopefully it's in Minnesota for all the Minnesota fans, but it might be elsewhere. Anyway, they were average in Minnesota for that 1968-69 season. But in 1969-1970, the drought didn't last too long because the Pipers were back. But the team still wasn't that great. And Haven Industries actually bought out the team. They're the maker of Jack Frost brand of sugar products, so pretty interesting ownership change there. And they were actually rebranded into the Pittsburgh Condors. From 1970 to 1972, the team still didn't do too hot. They went 36-48 and then 21-50 the next year. The real only notable things that came out of that team were really John Brisker and George Thompson, who were two-time All-Stars during that era for Pittsburgh. And those guys eventually went to the Tams in Memphis and the Kentucky Colonels, respectively. The last interesting thing is Walt Serbiak. He was the father of Wally Serbiak, and he would eventually become an All-Star in 2002, his son, that is. So that's really the lasting legacy of the Condors and what Pittsburgh basketball to this point has to offer to the NBA. A somewhat rich history given the lack of players that they really had to deal with and the lack of assets they were really given over their time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, become a fan, share with your friends. And this is your boy Gardog signing off. Hopefully you guys come back to the channel and hopefully I see you around. Later guys. Have a good day.